thinking about rebellion in a slightly different way, actually, is the lovely Flo. So Flo Parker is going to tell us a little bit about what it means to be a bad girl. Are you ready? And also a very good girl, which is something that I have been both, I think, somewhere along the line. I can see you looking. Right, Flo, come on up and welcome to the stage. Give her a round of applause. Here we go.
Let's turn my microphone on. Is that working? Yeah, that's working. Well, firstly, I have to say I'm deeply disappointed because Jeffrey's really stolen my thunder today. I definitely thought I was going to be the most brightly dressed person in the room, which has failed. And you can all decide what colour this is later. It's peach, exactly. Today I'm going to talk to you about the false promise of being a goody-goody. But so we're all on the same page, I want to lead with a few stats. The first stat is that out of the Fortune 500 companies, only 10% of the CEOs are women. The second stat is that of all small and medium-sized businesses, only 17% of women hold the majority share in those companies. And the final stat, and this is probably one that you've heard before, is that when a woman goes to apply for a role, often it's said she feels like she needs to fulfill 90% of the criteria of that role, whereas men surveyed felt like they needed to fulfill 60%. So why am I sharing these stats with you today, and what do they have to do with being a goody-goody? Well, think about the most successful people that you know. Maybe it's Stephen Bartlett, Karen Brady, that's her name, or Steve Jobs. Anyone that's an entrepreneur, a successful CEO, or someone that's forged their own path. Do you think they were a goody-goody? No, they were rebels, and they were encouraged to be rebels, but all of them had turning points in their life. I know this because I love podcasts, and so I've listened to podcasts that most of them have done about these turning points in their life. And I've had some turning points in my life as well that I'm going to share with you today. And the reason that I wanted to share them with you is not because my life has been particularly unique or that these things were particularly special, but because it's a story that I hear from women countless times in coaching, from friends, or even when I share it with my mum and her friends. This is a story that comes up all the time. And the story basically goes like this. Little girl is told to be good, to follow the rules, to be polite, to be perfect. And she really excels at school. She is praised by her teachers and her parents. She is a quote unquote delight to have in the classroom. If you're not sure whether you were a goody-goody, if you have ever been called that, then you definitely were. But then when she leaves to go into the world of work, what she's left with is the need to people please, a massive drive to overachieve, and all of her confidence is being built on this external validation that has constantly come throughout school. It's a false promise that if she behaves and she does what she's told, someone will notice and will give her the opportunities that she so desperately desires. So this was my story. It's the story that I've come to call the curse of the overperforming schoolgirl, because that's what I feel like it is. It's this curse when we've been told that it's a gift. I left university absolutely terrified of work. I felt like Ken. Has everybody seen the Barbie film? I presume so at this stage. Ken is dismayed when he finds out that his only qualification is beach. I felt like my only qualification was school, and I had no idea how that could help me excel in the real world. But today I'm going to tell you about a few turning points in my life that helped me to become what I think is a little bit of a rebel. But it really was a journey. I took my first job out of university, obviously the first job that was offered to me, because I was so scared that I was not going to be offered another one. And at that time, my confidence was so low. I really had no idea what my skills or strengths were or what I had to offer. And I spent that first 18 months pretty miserable. I actually spent pretty much every month trying to leave that job. And it took a very long time. And that was probably a gift, even though at the time I thought it was a curse, because it helped me to learn a lot about myself, a lot about failure, about getting things wrong. Up until that point, I really hadn't stumbled. I felt like I'd excelled through everything, but it was horrible, this feeling of not being in those places that I thought I should be. The turning point for me in this came when I was so miserable, but I was embarking on, hopefully, one of the happiest years of my life. I was getting married, and I had decided that I could not come back to this job. That just wasn't going to be my reality. And so I thought, I'll quit. If I can't get a job before I get married, I'm going to quit, because there's no way I'm coming back from honeymoon to this. And so that mindset, that shift in doing something that I had always been told you don't do, you don't quit your job until you've got a new one. Surely not. That's the most rebellious thing I could think of, but it felt so right. And of course, when I had had that thought and when I had built that confidence and really was committed that this was going to be the solution, even if it wasn't the ideal one or the perfect one that I'd laid out for myself, of course, I landed another job. That confidence that came from putting some belief in myself, from knowing that actually, even if I did the wrong thing, I could make it work, was transformative. This led me into taking my next job, where I was blessed to join a wonderful company, a completely different ethos and mindset to what I'd been used to. I knew that this was a completely different place when in the opening statement from the CEO, he mentioned 3 words: a blame-free culture. It's like, what is this? Before, I had only ever been told that if you got something wrong, you'd be found out for it, you'd be told off, you'd be dragged across the coals, maybe you'd even get fired. The amount of people that are so worried about being fired is really difficult, guys. Like, we can do quite a lot and not get fired. It's fantastic. But I didn't know this at the time, and I was terrified of it. But I actually saw them living this every day, this blame-free culture, where people were encouraged to take risks, to try something new, all in the pursuit of learning. And this was completely new to me, because actually when I was at school, I thought it was all about learning, but actually what I felt I was being told, and now I look back on, was about getting everything right. And here I was in an environment that was encouraging me to get things wrong. I started to do really radical things in this job, like putting my hand up in a meeting when I didn't know the answer to the question, or putting myself forward for something that I didn't think I was quite ready for yet, but I wanted the challenge to. And no, it didn't go right every time, but every time I learned more from it, and I was in an environment that encouraged that. This growth in confidence even led me to, towards the end of my time there, ask for a promotion. Which brings in another stat, that men are more likely to get a promotion than women simply because they ask for it. But good girls don't ask for more. We are told to be acceptant of what we have been offered, be grateful, and to effectively stay quiet, even if we feel like we could be offering more and could be asking for more. I was incredibly grateful of this placement and of this job. Mostly so because it introduced me to coaching. One of my colleagues was training to be a coach at the time, and she offered to do some trial sessions on me, which is also where I discovered the amazing work of Carol Dweck and her work on fixed and growth mindsets. For anyone that hasn't come across this before, a fixed mindset is the thought that your abilities and your talents are kind of born, whereas a growth mindset is where you can work on anything, you can learn to do anything. And if you feel like you don't know what that means, just look up her work and look at some of the things she's done with drawing and illustration. It's incredible. People who think that they're not artistic or you're only born artistic, it's absolutely amazing. And of course, being the goody, I read about this good thing and this bad thing, and I so wanted to be the one with the growth mindset, but I absolutely wasn't. I realized that I had been living with a massive fixed mindset that had been drilled into me, about the things that I would be good at, the things that I deserved, and how I was supposed to go about being in the world. This confidence that grew brought me to my third turning point, which was at the end of this job when they were selling the company and I had just started my own coaching journey. I decided that I would actually quit and leave and set up my coaching business, which I did. And it was such an amazing moment because so many people who I said I was going to do this to said, well, you must be terrified. This is such a scary thing. It's such a big thing. But at the time, it just felt like the right thing to do. I was so much more curious than I was afraid of what might happen. And from going from someone who was scared to put their hand up in class and get the answer wrong to being able to leave a really stable job and try something completely different was a huge transformation. And I realized this on reflection afterwards. Obviously, in the moment, you never realize these things so much. So I feel really lucky to be here now and be here today, to feel like I've broken free a bit of my goody background. But so many women that I work with and that I speak to never get out of that first phase. Most of the women that I speak to in my coaching practice come to me at the point that I was in my first job, miserable, undervalued, underappreciated, and feeling thoroughly stuck. And so my call today to a room full of coaches is how we can help people, and women especially, to find these turning points, to break free of living through external expectations, validation, and doing the thing that they think is right versus what they actually want to do. And I have 3 kind of key tips that I wanted to share with you, things that have worked and things that I've done personally. The first one is to find fear, seek out the things that scare you, and do them anyway. And this, this is such a cliche. Everybody always says it, find something that's scary and do it anyway. It can start really small. One of my clients was so afraid of starting something new that she knew she might not be good at immediately, but yet she really wanted to have a creative pursuit, that we started her knitting. And she started to try knitting things and different patterns, and she found it so frustrating. But through that process of starting small with things that scared her, and it really did scare her, the thought of not being good at something, she was able to finally create a hat that was worthy of wearing and give it as a gift, probably the best gift that she's ever given. The second thing is about seeking uncertainty. So I would only ever do something that I thought was a sure thing. For so much of my life, I was held back by staying within my comfort zone of knowing what I could and couldn't do. Again, this is where the fixed mindset played in. What I've seen and what I've learned from is that the more uncertain we are, the more interesting the outcomes for our life can be. And now I try to throw myself in the way of uncertainty. This here. And the final thing, and this is really one for anyone who feels like this has been them as well, the good girl that overlooked and has felt stuck, is to simply stop giving a fuck about what anyone thinks. Because it held me back for so long. Thinking about what my parents would think, what my teachers would think, and that all became, well, what will my bosses think or my peers think? And you tie yourself in knots, and it's the most damaging thing that we can do. So simply look to your gut, think about what you want to do, and go for it.
Fantastic. Stay here just a second. Flo has no idea what I'm doing with her still on stage. But I just think we should stand here for a second while I just talk to everyone. So I like the outfit. Maybe this is a clash, I don't know, but it works well for me. And I just want to say thank you very much. That was an amazing talk, and I know it was sort of your personal story, very much talking about women and girls, but it spoke to me, and I really resonated with that rebellious nature. It also made me think I've got 2 daughters. And I'm very much in the mindset of goody. And, I want to be careful. How do I encourage my daughter to be that? My daughters to be the rebels they need to be in a good way. So, yeah, I just really want to appreciate you. Thank you very much. And lovely outfit, by the way. Yeah.